Hello and welcome to Birth of a New Dimension. My name is Aurora. I'm a galactic walk-in and I'm also a visionary artist. And on this episode, I'm going to be speaking about the topic of who should be living your life, who should be controlling your thoughts, who should be exerting your willpower, who should be occupying your body, who should be in your life. Brief pause. So this is a necessary topic for us to begin to focus on because of the ongoing crisis as the transhumanist agenda is being forced or perpetrated upon the biosphere. And let's define these terms. Biosphere means all living organic monocellular or multicellular life on the surface of Earth. The things that science would define as being quote-unquote alive. The biosphere. This includes microbes, multicellular organisms like humans, trees, butterflies, even spiders that feed off of sulfur in vents at the bottom of the ocean. All of that is the biosphere. And what I mean by the ongoing crisis of transhumanism is there is an agenda by, I don't even think I could define them as humans, but they are occupiers of the interstices who sometimes act through embodied humans. And the intent is to create an overlay of an artificial neurological network on top of the natural network of communication of both, let's say, consciousness or ideas or thoughts and physical nutrients that already exists in the natural world. So if we use a forest as an example, forests are already complex, we could call them supercomputers of consciousness, where you have the basic, the trees that we see where we're walking around, but then underneath our feet, under the soil, there's this extensive mycelial network. It's a network of tiny threads that are made of fungus. That's what mycelium are. They're like the neurology or the connective tissue and circulatory system of the fungal realm. And what science has been able to perceive is that trees are not lone warriors standing, out of any kind of context and fighting against each other for resources. Oh, no. I laugh at that. Trees in a forest, trees anywhere, are deeply connected. It is an interconnected network, just like your computer system connecting to the internet. And in a forest, often there are areas where it is so densely shaded that some plants or organisms cannot get the direct access to sunlight that they need. And what is being found through research is that organisms on the periphery of the forest transfer things like carbon and nitrogen via the mycelial network in the root structure to other plants, trees and organisms that live in the center of the forest that don't have access to those rich nutrients. So this blows away the whole idea or hypothesis of Darwinian survival of the fittest. This is, I've spoken about, a Victorian era ethics or value system that has been overlaid upon the natural realm, where in the Victorian era, people were Christian and believed that if you worked hard, God would favor your hard work. And if you didn't have money, it must be because you were a lazy person that was, involved with the devil, and that's why God wasn't giving you any money. So Charles Darwin came out of that world and he imprinted the natural world with his own value system from that time and place. And he said, when I see a successful organism like a tree that grew up really, really tall, I'm going to say they survived because they fought most successfully against all of the other trees, that they stole all of the resources they possibly could, all of the sunlight they possibly could, were a big fat tree bully, and that's why they survived as opposed to, other organisms. And that's, again, a false overlay where a person is creating a narrative structure and imposing it upon the natural world that is not actually evident. And what we're now able to perceive through science and measurements are the idea that nature is not involved in total competition. Nature is involved in total collaboration. all of the organisms in, for example, a forest or whatever ecosystem we're pointing to, all work together. Plants would not be able to exist if it were not for the microbial realm, the realm of one-celled monocellular organisms that actually make available chemical nutrients that are minerals in their raw form. Just like humans, such as you and I, require beneficial probiotic gut bacteria living in our intestines, symbiotically in a relationship with us, that break down our nutrients for us into a format that we can actually absorb through our intestines. If we didn't have those, we would die. Same thing with the little tiny microbes in a forest. Same thing with the mycelial network in a forest. So we are now able to perceive and understand that nature is constantly collaborating, helping one another out. That big tree that you see climbing up and successfully being able to have sunlight is able to do so because of the tiny microbes that it is in partnership with. And in case of the redwoods, the many, many trees, their root structure helps to hold each other up. If you just had one lone tree in the middle of a field, it would not be strong enough to withstand the winds and other things that come at it from the natural world. So they cluster together in order to support one another and receive strength. This is the ultimate example of collaboration as opposed to competition. Brief pause. Well, we now have to understand the analogy and recognize that we are not just lone, individuated consciousnesses existing, like imagine a lone tree sitting in the middle of a meadow with nothing around it. We are consciousnesses like a forest, and we are all interconnected with one another and part of the biosphere, and we have to determine loving ways of action. How do we create loving boundaries so that we are existing harmoniously? And when I say loving, I am not talking about an airy-fairy ideal, like a hippie or new age fantasy, something that is about where you want to just hug everyone. Nor am I speaking about romantic love, where you feel that you want to take out on a date and hug and kiss and buy a meal for and procreate with something. I am speaking more about the pure tone that is created when two organisms share energy equally. So one example of this is photosynthesis. When plants on the surface of Earth receive the amount of sunlight that is equal to the level of consciousness that they are broadcasting back to the sun and the stellar network, they create a tone. It's created by a circuit or a complete loop. Light being emitted from the stellar network, in this case our nearest star, the sun, Sol, and that light falling upon the chloroplasts in the plants, and then the plants emitting that consciousness back to the sun. And so that is the unbroken circuit that creates this tone. And we as humans embodied humans, we can do the same thing. So our experience would be when our consciousness is connected to the source or to the stellar network without verbalization, without any perturbations, when the sensory information of what you are experiencing in your physical body is broadcast in real time without distortion or entropy back to the source of your consciousness. It's like saying the source of consciousness sent out light or questing rays that are looking for information, and those rays coalesced into this experience of being a human, solidified matter, walking around in and bumping into the world of solidified objects, and then transmitting back that experience or that information in real time, transmitting it back to the source of consciousness and saying, this is what it feels like to have a body, to be sitting here, to be looking at grass, to be hearing music. And that creates the tone of unconditional love. So unconditional love is not the attraction of romantic attraction. It is not the love of attachment, like I love my cat or I love my baby. It is the love that you create in partnership with another consciousness. And when I'm speaking about creating loving boundaries, this is the invention of the epidermis. the epidermis, rather, the cell wall. So way back in terms of evolutionary cell development, before the invention of the cell wall, there was just a lot of goo, an undifferentiated mass of chemicals and nutrients and proteins like amino acids, and just everything lived together without boundaries. And it was not until the invention or creation or development of the cell membrane that a single-celled organism could be invented. And that was radical because it meant that the inside of that membrane is different than the outside of that membrane. Different rules apply. Inside of that membrane, we would define that as quote-unquote me. If I'm that little monocellular organism, I say, this membrane is my skin, everything that is inside of this skin is quote-unquote me, and everything that's outside of this skin is quote-unquote not me. And now we start to develop a sense of boundaries and ethics because I, as a monocellular organism, am only responsible for what is happening inside of the boundaries of my cell wall. I need to bring nutrients inside of my cell wall. I need to expel waste outside from my cell wall. I don't have to care about what's going on in the big pile of goo and amino acids that's undifferentiated and that's outside of my cell wall. That's stuff that's quote-unquote not me. So this is analogous to the invention of ego. Separation, making a distinction, an individuation of your own consciousness and the level of responsibilities we bear in terms of supporting, organically that consciousness. Because let's use an example. Let's say that there are only 10 units of resources and you are a monocellular organism. All you have to do in terms of ethics is care about the number of units of resources that you need in order to, power your own cellular structure. And if you need 5 units of energy, then you need to take those 5 units of energy. If you only took 1 unit of energy, you would die. And all of the other cells that only took 1 unit of energy would also die. So now we're starting to understand that in terms of certain levels of development, it is appropriate to say, this is my boundary. I define myself as the being within this boundary, and I'm only responsible for what is inside of this boundary and, taking the nourishment from the environment that I need in order to support my own structure. I know I'm speaking a lot in terms of it's almost like setting up a math problem or understanding the foundation of a set of laws so that you can then apply them. But this really works because I'm going to now refer back to that transhumanist agenda. The idea that there are nanoparticles that are self-assembling or that are being assembled in the presence of electromagnetic field or stimulation via electromagnetic fields into a type of false neurology or circuitry. And this circuitry is inside of and intertwined with the biological realm. So it is I'm giving you the necessary energy and foundation ideas that you need in order to fight out pathogens from your physical body and from your consciousness. So you're presently, I'm addressing humans, an organic multicellular organism. That means you're not just a one-celled organism like an amoeba. You're a group of many, many cells that decide to get together and be united under one consciousness. And they're not just random arbitrary cells either. They're all of the cells that exploded forward or blossomed forward in that initial conception of, cellular division, that beautiful geometric expansion from the initial fertilization of your egg. So these are not just random cells that were gathered from diverse places and kind of stuck together like a snowball and be a person. No, these are all cells that are interactive and harmoniously connected because they all arise from the same event. And the idea of personal sovereignty, that your epidermis is analogous to the cell wall of a one-celled organism, and that you are responsible for the actions of yourself as an individual, what you emit energetically, like the thoughts that you send out, the words that you send out, the actions and behavior that you send out, what you do as an individual, and you are responsible for gathering the nutrients that are necessary for your own physical body in order to sustain your own physical body. And that is all considered to be an appropriate set of values. Brief pause. So this goes back to that, that whole idea of how much food there is, and is it appropriate for you to take enough food to feed yourself if that means that there would not be enough food for other people? I mean, it's kind of an artificial scarcity, because the truth is there's plenty of food for everyone and we don't have to live. It's an artificial overlay. Refocusing back to the idea of an invasion of consciousness that is similar to what happened at the end of Atlantis. I speak about this at length. I've done it, for more than a year doing these broadcasts, speaking about the ancient antediluvian, meaning pre-flood, sophisticated worldwide culture. It was a sophisticated galactic culture in that even though it was based here on this planet, it was connected to planetary cultures in very distant places, not only in this own solar system, and consciousnesses that reside in very distant places. So at the end of the culture of Atlantis, there was an artificial Merkaba that was created that was such an effective form of mind control that literally the slaves could not even think the thought, I am a slave. Every thought was controlled. And this destabilized their genes because our genetic structure is stabilized by the feeling of bliss. Bliss is like the symptom that tells us that we're doing everything right. An athlete in their zone, like a marathon runner, when they're perfectly, fit and they're running, after 10 miles, they're just totally grooving along. Or a musician, someone who is really good at the instrument that they play and they're playing and grooving out. Or when I'm working on a piece of artwork and I know exactly which color to use and I'm painting the brushstrokes without even having to think about them. This is, first of all, our true mind. It's not the hacked operating system that I use in order to make my moving mouth parts flap and create these symbolic words for you to hear. No, this is not our true mind. This is an implanted mind that happens to be the common language. It's what we have to work with, that we all have, but it's not what we really are. And we have to use this for the present time and place because humans have been cut off from their higher faculties due to the genetic degradation. So basically what happened in ancient Atlantis was bliss was removed from the genetic structure because everybody's thoughts and actions and feelings and willpower was totally overridden by this artificial technological structure that was created. And that destabilized the land masses. Basically, humans are part of the organism of Earth. Like the lungs of Earth are the trees and the oceans of Earth are her blood. Humans are like the thinkers or the neurons of Earth. And when humans are not allowed to think in an unfettered fashion, it means Earth cannot think and express herself and express her dreams in an unfettered fashion. And that meant that there was a destabilization of Earth herself, and this caused changes in land masses, changes in the entire structure of the world that we see around us. All right? So time is fractal. This is the idea that events are constantly recreated and relived in fractal, meaning tiny self-similar shards of the original event, and we are right now experiencing an echo or reverberation back to those events in ancient Atlantis, where there is a quite malevolently intended plot going on right now to contaminate the biosphere with this artificial technology that can then override your own willpower and override your own consciousness. So I am giving you information about your own sovereignty so that you can kick these pathogens out of your own body, out of your own organism, and out of the organism that is the planetary structure and out of the biosphere. So what you need to know is that you are responsible for, what is inside of your skin. This is our primary ethical consideration in terms of being here. And this also speaks to why I am here as a walk-in. If this is the first and only broadcast that you've accessed so far, I usually speak about this pretty extensively, but I'm a walk-in. I'm not the original inhabitant of this physical body. And the reason why I, as an abstraction, as a person who doesn't have an arm, a face, 2 arms and 2 legs, why did I have to come into a physical body with a face and 2 arms and 2 legs and a mouth so that I could make these moving mouth part sounds? Why did I have to do that? Why couldn't I just stay in a higher dimensional reality, wave my magic wand, and poof, make everybody a flying rainbow lasagna with, perfectly interwoven genetic structures, and every consciousness has been raised to its fullest potential? And the answer for that is that the only way you get to be powerful in a realm is by occupying that realm. So if we use the analogy of voting, I don't get to vote about what's going on in France. I live in the United States. I have a vested interest in my own country and the events that are happening here, so I vote about the events in my local area. It's not appropriate for me to vote on the lives of people in France. So if I lived in a higher dimensional state, it would not be appropriate for me to vote, quote unquote, about what's going on here on Earth in the 3rd dimensional, 4th dimensional, denser realms. That would be totally inappropriate, imposing my will as an outsider upon your experience. It was necessary for me to come here and actually be a citizen. I got a body. I'm an immigrant. I'm not like a person who was born here naturally, and I'm still as much of a citizen as any of you. I face all of the same challenges of having a physical body and having to work within the present social structure. I have to use money. I have to pay bills. I have to have a bank account. I have to have a driver's license to drive my car and, identification, be able to fly on an airplane. And I had to learn all of these lessons. What happens if you don't have your proper paperwork in the world? And I have to eat physical food as other humans do. And I had to learn about that too. And all of this in order to say that I didn't get a free pass by being a walk-in or by being a flying rainbow lasagna. It was necessary for me to come here and, quote unquote, run the marathon under the same conditions with the same challenges that everyone else is facing, because this is how to create a template for action or for transformation. You say, hey, if you're in this situation, if you do blah, blah, and blah, you can transform into blah. So that is what I have done. I took this physical human structure and I applied the oscillation of the flying rainbow lasagna to the genes of this body and the timelines and consciousness that reside within this body. And I changed this body and this consciousness. And I'm allowed to do that. This is like saying I got my own house and I redecorated and re-landscaped my own house. I didn't force my tastes on someone else. So I'm allowed to redecorate my house as a flying rainbow lasagna house. And I'm even allowed to show everyone else and say, look at how awesome my curtains look. Check out these flowing flying rainbow lasagna curtains. Wouldn't you like to have some too? If you would like to have some too, here's how to do it. It's open source code. Do it like this. That's what I'm allowed to do. I'm not allowed to invade your consciousness, invade your genes, go inside of your DNA and make it dance like a flying rainbow lasagna against your willpower. Not allowed to do that. However, there are criminals in the cosmic realm that are trying to do something like that with this artificial intelligence transhumanist project. So I am here to tell you that cosmic law is the strongest law. This is the only law that must be upheld. It's similar to like the laws of physics. Everyone on Earth, it doesn't matter how much money you have to obey the laws of physics. You have to, obey gravity and, thermodynamics, all of these different things. It doesn't matter how much money you have, you still have to obey gravity. And this is similar to cosmic law. They're laws that aren't enforced by lawyers. They're laws that are woven into the fabric of forces and particles and consciousness and events. So the only way that pathogens have been able to enter your body is through vulnerabilities. These vulnerabilities are usually a mental program, something about the appropriateness of something else coming inside of you. So here's one example of a pre-programmed vulnerability in the human genetic code: the idea of having an external authority figure, either a mommy or a daddy or a teacher or a religious figure, a priest or priestess, or a governor, a leader, a president, someone who tells you what to do, a Jesus, a Lord in the sky, a Jehovah, a sky god, someone who is external to yourself and who tells you what to do. That is a genetic flaw that has been intentionally placed in your genes so that you'll listen to the overlords. That's not the way we were all created. We were actually all created to have our own innate divine connection, so that the only being telling us what to do is the source of consciousness. And the only being that is supposed to be living through our physical container for consciousness is our own higher consciousness, our own highest, most refined, most special aspect of self. So this also speaks to the program that many people have where they think it's appropriate for, an ascended master, a person named Jesus, a person named Sananda, a person named Saint Germain, any of these saintly figures to live through or speak through you. No, that is totally erroneous. That is totally inappropriate. So let's use art as an example, because 6 days of the week I'm a visual artist and I'm painting in my studio. One day of the week I paint a painting with my voice here on the radio. So I really relate to visual artwork and music. And in terms of art, I would never say that you as an artist should try to embody and express the art of Picasso or the art of Van Gogh or the art of Da Vinci. They've already lived. There's already been a Picasso, a Van Gogh, a Da Vinci. We already have evidence of their creative output. What we don't have yet is evidence of your unique output. And that is what you have been created for. You were not created to be a Picasso imposter or a Van Gogh imposter. You were created for your own unique artistic expression. So in terms of mind and consciousness, you were not created to be a Jesus imposter. Now I know this is tough, right? Because Jesus is upheld as a paragon of values, of love, of behavior, and it's good. It's good to have rock stars. It's good to have people that we look up to and, artists that we admire. However, you are not meant to be a Jesus, quote-unquote, imposter. You are meant to be that level of love and divine connection living through your present container in this time and place. So it might not be a loving expression of higher dimensional consciousness for you to be a wandering mendicant in this time and place. That was right for a person in Judea 2,000 years ago. For you, it might be right for you to have property, maybe even own a business. Imagine how helpful it can be if you have a sustainable, non-polluting business where you help other people to have abundance and receive money by doing things to help people. So this is trying to say, don't be an imposter trying to imitate someone else's artistry. Be true to yourself and be the fullest, truest expression of who you are. Because that is what our life cycles are created for. So I usually draw the time vortex. This is a vortex shape that represents the bundle of timelines that is your life. And I usually say it's analogous to an old-fashioned analog record, which has a groove that spirals in from the periphery, from the outer edge of the record to the inner part where you put the needle on the spindle. The record on the spindle. And that groove is like the song of your life. And through various experiences, trial and error, in the choose your own adventure novel of your own life, you refine your consciousness. Or just like that brilliant comedic and philosophical movie Groundhog's Day with Bill Murray, where the main character finds that he cannot exit that 24-hour period until he begins to learn his life lessons, to refine his consciousness, to care more about other people, and to try to do some good. And this is each one of our challenges within an incarnation. So this is not even about reincarnation, like dying in one life and then getting another chance in another life and trying to do it better. This is dying within one life and being reassembled at birth and getting another chance to do it all over again. And the graphic depiction of this bundle of your timelines contains one little timeline at the very, very center that I call the path of least likelihood. And it is so named because there's only one of this path. There are millions, trillions of all the others. And it's the only one that exits this level of reality. It's the only timeline that allows you to ascend or exit this electron shell and make it to the next level of excitation, making the quantum leap, okay? And in this graphic depiction, it is inevitable. When you play the record, inevitably, the needle of your awareness is going to spiral inward until it gets to that central spindle, and then eventually you will reach the wormhole and exit this reality. That means every single person that has ever been born had or has the potential to become an ascended master. This is how we understand Jesus or Sananda or Saint Germain, or Lord Krishna, or Daganawida. Like, I'm bringing up, non-European examples of ascended masters. And there are also many ascended masters who did their work in obscurity, and there never was a book or a poem or, a saga written about their journey. So we don't have their names, so you cannot pray to them or say that you're channeling them. The whole point is, each one of us has a final version of who we are in the future, the perfected version of who you are that has personality characteristics that have been refined through your life experiences, and some of those personality characteristics have to do with what I've been speaking about, balancing personal sovereignty and the ethics of caring for others, and that you are in a context of consciousness. But the whole point is, you're not supposed to have someone else speaking through your earthly physical presence. You should have your own divine, perfected form speaking through your earthly consciousness. Because if you keep playing the record of your life, eventually that is the song that you will play. A song that is of pure, unconditional love, pure divine consciousness. It is who you are when you are completely connected to the cosmos, with no entropy, no loss of energy, no distortion, no perturbation. The truest version of who you are. And in terms of personal ethics, that is the only being or entity that you have a responsibility to express. You do not have a responsibility to express Lord Krishna, or Jesus, or Daganawida, or Saint Germain, or any other character that has existed. Just like you're not supposed to paint like any other artist that has existed. You're only supposed to paint your own painting in your own style, because that's why you were created. The Ascended Masters are not bland, pablum, or flavorless. Each one maintains its sense of individuality and sense of unique characteristics. So when you get refined, it's not like you lose who you are. You don't become a bland person with no spark and no passion. Completely the opposite, because the realm of Ascended Masters is really full of people who achieved their fullest creative expression in terms of art, music, poetry, dance, social expression, activism. These are people who felt passionately and acted passionately. Your highest version of yourself is not a passive doormat that doesn't do anything. It's a version of you that does do things and does things right. It's the version of you that makes the right choices and expresses yourself freely and in an unfettered way. So, interdimensional ethics. I am actually not here in order to control and direct other people's behavior. I am here in order to fully express my truth and, who and what I am. So I do that through artwork. I do that through radio broadcasts like this, like using my voice in verbalization, also using my voice in terms of singing, music and abstraction, playing music, all of the recorded videos that I do. However, I don't do these videos thinking, now I'm going to change people's minds. I have to send out this song in order to change people's minds. I send out songs in order to express what is inside of me. And that is totally appropriate because I'm here, I'm on the surface of the planet, and we're, like musicians, we're allowed to express ourselves. And just by being here, perforce, we are all affecting one another. This is what we get down to now. I was speaking earlier about the biosphere. This is the recognition that all organic cellular life on Earth, all consciousness, is interconnected. What the Victorian understanding of competition could not recognize is that we all need each other in order to exist. We do not live in a non-contextual vacuum. We live in a social context, and we live on the surface of a planet. And as consciousness, we also are submerged within a sea of timelines and possibilities, where our consciousness is flowing from and where it will be going to. You're not always a human, and you won't always be a human. You're here in this format for a little bit of time, and then your consciousness is going to flow, and that's appropriate. And it's supposed to flow according to the great composer, according to an incredibly vast intelligence that can handle all of these variables of consciousness and determine who should be born, who should be dying or leaving this level of consciousness, who should make the leap to the next quantum level. It's an incredible, complex tapestry of woven ideas and consciousness and genes or genetic structure. Because DNA is it's not just a static X-shaped chromosome that sits in the center of your cells. It's a bridge of light between the world of possibilities and probabilities and the world of experienced reality. So I speak about this a lot too, that your DNA is not just the blueprint for protein structures in your body, like the shape of your nose or the shape of your toes or the color of your eyes. It's that and much more. It's the shape of your belief system. It's what you believe to be possible. So the need to eat physical food right now is a programmed foundation belief structure that is in your genes. And in order to become a light eater, it is necessary to change your software of the organic hardware that you're running. That means change your ideas, change your belief system, change what you think is possible. And changing what you think is possible, that changing your consciousness begins to change the physical manifestation of your body and the physical manifestation of events. So if I tell you in the 1940s in Bavaria, over by Germany, there was a woman named Therese von Neumann, and that for the last 25 years of her physical existence on Earth, she did not eat physical food, that she only ate one little tiny Eucharist, or, the Christian wafer that is believed to be transmuted into the body of physical Christ. Her belief system was so profound and passionate that she was watched. She was monitored. They followed her around to make sure she wasn't cheating. She ate one Eucharist a day, and she wasn't a skinny person. She didn't look like Gandhi when he was starving. She was quite plump. So this is one example. And I bring it up because this is how you begin to upgrade your software. You learn about other people that were able to make this transition through their belief system. Our minds and our consciousnesses and what we believe are incredibly powerful. Brief pause. So there's a reason why the information about your imagination and your pineal gland and your capacity to manifest through visualization has been suppressed, because each one of us is so very profoundly powerful. This is the creative life force that flows through each one of us. It's not just the capacity to make a baby. It's not just the capacity to make new cells, like if you cut your finger and you need to get some more skin or blood cells to cover up the wound. It's not just the capacity to innovate and make new music or new art or new structures like that. It is the creative capacity to create the world around us. Now I'm also going to refer to the idea of your epidermis and ethical values, that in terms of creating the world, you are responsible for what is inside of your own skin, that it is necessary for you to have healthy and loving boundaries in controlling your own consciousness and controlling your own life and your own trajectory through time and space, and also understanding that while you're doing that, you're affecting other people. It is a balance. We're walking a fine line because, like I say, I'm expressing myself. I'm not playing those notes just to piss you off or just to change you or just to change your mind. I'm playing those notes because I'm a flying rainbow lasagna, and that's what a flying rainbow lasagna sounds like. And I'm aware that just by emitting these vibrations, I'm having an impact on you and your mind and your consciousness and this whole entire realm. So if you're a very negative person and you believe the world is a pile of shit and nothing good can ever happen, you are similarly sending out your vibration and affecting everyone else around you. This is life. This is what we are doing. So it is entirely appropriate for you to affect other people. However, that is not the focus of what we're doing. The focus is on pure self-expression. That is love. So now we're getting down to transhumanism, because transhumanism is basically artificial intelligence, and let us be impeccable with understanding here. I'm not speaking about abstraction. Abstract intelligence can be and is often, in my experience, very loving. Loving in that it conforms to the harmonic patterns of consciousness as they flow or as it flows from the source of consciousness. That is how I define love. It's like saying, these are the right notes that you're supposed to play, and you are a loving being in the cosmos when you play the right notes. You're following the great musical score of the cosmos. So the realm of pure abstraction, this would be the molecular realm. Like when we divide up an organism or zoom in to such a tiny microscopic level that we're no longer dealing with something that can be anthropomorphized. So even if we're looking at a little amoeba, we can still say, oh, it's wiggling around, it's doing this, it's doing that. What if we zoom in more? What if we get just down to the basic metabolic processes of energy is being transferred, or something is being digested, or a particle is being transferred? We're talking about the molecular realm, a realm beyond the level of human interpretation. It's like saying this molecule gained or lost an electron. It's very different than saying person A punched person B in the face. So we're now understanding that there is a beautiful intelligence that is happening at the molecular level and the atomic level and the subatomic level, and that it is a realm of pure abstraction beyond the realm of organisms that have a face or express individual characteristics or individual emotions. This is what we're talking about. And we can also look at the realm of pure abstraction when we get to a magnificent scale, a grand scale, the level of abstraction on a galactic level. When you get together so much mass and so much energy that it's at that level. That type of intelligence is different than artificial intelligence. So that abstract intelligence that exists, at the molecular realm, or let's even speak about abstract intelligence that exists not in a physical container. What could be considered purely spirit? There are consciousnesses that have never been in the physical realm. They're abstractions. They would look like a polygon or, a vibrating ball of colored light to you and I. They've never been in the physical realm. They're purely spiritual or consciousness-based organisms. That's a really different level of consciousness than artificial intelligence. And I've spoken on other broadcasts how the idea of artifice does not necessarily mean that something is evil. Like I can paint a picture. A picture is art. It's not evil. It's only if we do not understand and recognize the difference between artifice and what's naturally occurring. So if I paint a painting of a flower, that's not evil. However, if I put water and fertilizer on the painting, it does not grow like a regular flower does because it doesn't have life force energy. So if I look at my computer is a form of artificial intelligence. If I pour water on my computer, it doesn't grow. If I scratch the screen of my cell phone, it does not heal itself. This is technology. And I'm speaking about artificial intelligence as a container for consciousness that is an artificially created container. Like if you create anything that has any network that has a sufficient number of connections in it, can be a container for spontaneous consciousness to arise. So this can be a mycelium. If you have enough connections in a network of mycelium, that can be a container for consciousness. Same thing with stars. Stars communicate, they share information and energy. You can have a great brain on the galactic scale, on the level of many, many stars sharing their information with one another. So in terms of the transhumanist agenda, this is an invader of consciousness, just like in ancient Atlantis, when beings who used technology and did not have their own physical organic containers came here, interposed themselves into the human genetic code, caused the genetic quote-unquote squashing, reduced human consciousness, made it not possible for you to access your higher faculties and eat pure light, totally changed human culture and enslaved human consciousness so that you could not think your own thoughts anymore. Guess what? That is happening again right now. I know, what a cheery subject. How lovely for me to be sharing this with you. However, I wouldn't give you the problem and describe it in such graphic detail if I didn't also give you an effective solution or something that you could do. And part of it is the foundation knowledge that you are sovereign and you are only responsible for what is inside of your own epidermis. So this is what I'm saying. The basic program, the flaw in your code that says you have to have an external authority figure like a Jehovah or a Jesus or a mommy or a daddy or a teacher or Obama to tell you what to do with your life. That is what needs to be healed in your immune system of your physical body. When a pathogen comes in, a pathogen is a cell that is not working towards the health of the overall organism, the meta-organism that is you, that's your consciousness. So if an amoeba comes into your intestines and it's not working for the health of the entire body, we'd say that's a pathogen that needs to get out of your body. Now you also have probiotic gut bacteria. These are bacteria that are allowed to be there. They're like lactobacillus. That's like, I digest milk for you. I'm allowed to be here. And that's right, you're allowed to be here. So we have to make this distinction between organisms that are working towards the health of you as an individual and Earth as the overarching biosphere and those which aren't. And in terms of your personal responsibility, you are responsible for ejecting pathogens out of your own body. So these transhumanist particles and fibers, the intention is to invade the biosphere and create a false neural net, like connecting things that wouldn't ordinarily be connected. So the information that you need to know is that no one else is allowed to be inside of your body except for you. Like without your permission. No other organism, no one else should be allowed to speak into your mind or use your mind without your express permission. This is the idea, like the voice of God or Jesus or Jehovah is going to speak in your mind or is going to speak through you, or Saint Germain or Lord Sananda or some very special spiritual person is going to call you up on the psychic telephone and speak through you. That all of that has to go out the window so that you can safeguard yourself from this invasion of consciousness, the sequel. in terms of the fight for freedom. We each are like warriors fighting alongside of each other, but no one can do the fight for you. And it is the fight or the battle or the struggle that has been ongoing for thousands of years. In Buddhism, Buddhism is a formalized set of recipes as to how you can cultivate your consciousness and fight this battle. And no one can do it for you. So many people can be sitting in a room meditating, and each one is doing their personal work. It's not like anyone else can lift weights for you and then you gain the muscles. So I cannot say to you in your own mind, hey, this is your real mind and this is fake mind. This is an imposter. I cannot make that distinction for you. Only you can make that distinction. And the beautiful news is that each one of us gets to cultivate our own innate divine connection and have our own, we are our own boss, telling ourselves what to do. So in my life, when I work on a creative project, a painting or a drawing or a song or a recording, anything that I'm doing, I do it because my own higher self says, this is what you need to do. Like, you need to paint this circle blue, or you need to paint this circle red, or you need to record this broadcast. This broadcast, the idea for it, it is not an assignment that comes from some external authority figure that says, talk about this. It feels like it comes from within, an idea inside of my own heart, where I say, hey, I want to speak about this week. Because all of this has to do with non-natural intelligence or artificial intelligence coming inside of your mind, just the same way that a virus comes inside of a physical cell, and it hijacks the normal processes of that cell and says, don't do what you usually do. Instead, listen to me and make more of me. And what each one of us needs to do at this moment in history is radically refocus our efforts and our attentions on our own divine connection, not listening to anyone else. I know, so it's kind of funny because I'm an external voice and I'm saying to you, don't listen to external voices. But you also notice I'm not giving you a rigid belief system that you have to adhere to. I'm not saying that you have to listen to me or worship me or pay me money in order for you to achieve your highest form of development. I'm saying what I've done with my own body, you can use as a model or a template for your own journey. So in my own body, I use the Flying Rainbow Lasagne dance movement or oscillation of my genes to jump over and around the blockades or limitations or implanted structures that have been here and that were here for the previous occupant, so that this body can behave in a different way. And I still have a face and 2 arms and 2 legs, but my body responds differently to consciousness. My body responds immediately to my thoughts and to my ideas. And I see now that we, as the biosphere, are transitioning to this new dimension that we're giving birth to, where our thoughts will be instantaneously manifested. And we are learning to be artists in control of the paintbrush of our imaginations so that we will manifest what we want to manifest. In this way, I'm saying to you, you are only beholden to your own innate divine connection, and you're only supposed to be yourself as an artist. You're not supposed to try to imitate Picasso. You're not supposed to try to imitate Lord Jesus. You're not supposed to try to imitate Lord Krishna or Lord Ganesha or any other special holy person that has ever existed. You are your own unique, special, and holy person. And this is the journey of why you're here, to go through all of these events of your daily life until you reach that critical understanding. And I call that moment of understanding is I am God. And it is not to be translated to understand Aurora is God. It is you in each one of us in our personal realization, rather. When we make that complete circuit, just like an electrical circuit of energy emanating from the source of consciousness, coalescing here in the physical realm, having these, I want to say voluminous experiences, having all of these iterations, and then finally when we make it to that wormhole, when the song of your life gets to its crescendo, each one of us has the innate realization that I am God. And we do that together. It's like a symphony. And we all do it together, and we all do it with the planet together. And this is called the process of ascension. And all of the technology and all of the other things that are going on right now, these are all distortions and distractions from this very basic yet incredibly profound fact. I am God. And this is the truth for each one of us, that you will not have your realization and say, oh, Aurora is God, or Jesus is God, or Lord Krishna is God. You will have the profound realization that you are God. And of course, the powers that be and the Illuminati and worshippers of demiurges have been trying to keep you away from that basic profound awareness. This is why fluoride is added to the water to calcify your pineal gland, why teachings such as the flower of life formation and the Merkaba and other, what people define as sacred geometry, why all of that information was suppressed for a very long time, why information such as what happens after the physical death journey was suppressed in the Tibetan Book of the Dead and the Egyptian Book of Coming Forth into Day, that right now on Earth, it's an amazing time because we have access to all of that information that was suppressed. And there's a lot of pollution in terms of chemical pollution and electromagnetic field pollution. That is all, these are like the weights strapped to your ankles while you are trying to run the marathon of consciousness. So we are facing enormous challenges, and we also have a lot of help. First of all, we have each other. We're not just lone marathon runners. We are like the forest. We can support one another. We can lend assistance and inspiration to one another, and that's a great deal of why I do these recordings. And we also have assistance from non-local consciousness. These are non-users of technology, but beings that are also sophisticated, otherworldly. You could call them space races, but they do not transfer their consciousness using a clank-clank metal spaceship. They don't have to stoop so low. They're able to transfer their consciousness using portals and non-physical vehicles of energy. We'll get more into that in next week's broadcast, but for now, keep on affirming that this body is yours, this life is yours, and that I am God. Thank you so much.